What if I told you one country is bigger than a planet, hides cities that don't exist on maps, has cold that can kill you in minutes, controls a machine that can end the world, and owns a lake that can silently kill you? This is not fiction. This is Russia. And the facts you're about to hear will completely change how you see this country. Fact number 1. Russia is so massive that it is bigger than a planet. When people hear that Russia is the largest country in the world, most of them imagine a big place on the map. But what they don't realize is that Russia's size is so extreme that it completely breaks the human understanding of distance, scale, and control. In fact, Russia is so massive that its land area is larger than the surface area of Pluto, a celestial body floating alone in space. This is not a metaphor, not clickbait, and not exaggeration. According to scientific measurements, Pluto's surface area is smaller than Russia's territory. One country on Earth is physically bigger than a planet. Russia covers more than 17 million square kilometers, stretching across Eastern Europe and deep into Northern Asia. To put this into perspective, Russia alone is bigger than the United States, China, and India combined. It occupies over 1/10 of all the land on Earth. If you placed Russia on top of most continents, it would completely dominate them. On a world map, Russia doesn't just stand out, it overwhelms everything around it. But the real intensity of this fact is not about numbers. It's about what this size actually means in real life. Russia spans 11 time zones. That means when people in Western Russia are eating breakfast, people in Eastern Russia are already preparing to sleep. The sun rises and sets at completely different times across the same country. New Year's celebrations happen multiple times within Russia before Moscow even reaches midnight. Very few nations on Earth experience time itself in this way. Because Russia is so huge, distance becomes dangerous. There are regions where the nearest hospital is hundreds of kilometers away. Entire towns exist without proper road access. In some areas, roads only exist for a few weeks in winter, made from frozen rivers and ice. When the ice melts, those roads disappear. If an emergency happens at the wrong time, help simply does not come. Russia's size also creates extreme isolation. In Siberia, there are forests that stretch endlessly without a single city, village, or signal tower. Some parts are so remote that even today, humans have barely explored them. If someone goes missing in these areas, they may never be found, not because nobody searches, but because the land is too vast, too empty, and too unforgiving. This massive size also shapes Russia's weather in terrifying ways. Russia contains some of the hottest summers and the coldest inhabited places on Earth. One region can be experiencing mild temperatures, while another is facing conditions that can kill exposed skin in minutes. Nature behaves differently across Russia, and humans are constantly forced to adapt or suffer the consequences. Historically, Russia's size has acted like a natural weapon. Morale collapsed, and the cold finished the job. Russia's land itself became the enemy. Even today, this vastness hides things the world rarely sees. Military bases in unreachable locations, abandoned cities reclaimed by snow and forests, facilities that don't appear on maps, roads that lead into nothingness. Russia has enough space to hide entire worlds inside itself. Living in a country this large changes the psychology of its people. Distance feels normal. Isolation feels expected. Survival becomes a mindset. In some regions, people grow up knowing that help is not guaranteed, that nature is stronger than technology, and that one mistake can be fatal. So when you hear that Russia is bigger than Pluto, it sounds shocking but harmless. Yet when you understand what that size truly means, it becomes unsettling. Because a land this vast doesn't just exist within borders. It controls time. It controls survival. And sometimes it controls history itself. Fact number 2, Russia has secret cities that officially do not exist. Imagine being born in a city that is missing from maps, erased from travel guides, and denied by official records. a place where even mentioning your home to outsiders can get you into serious trouble. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a documented reality in Russia, where dozens of closed cities were created during the Cold War and many still operate today under strict secrecy, hidden behind fences, checkpoints, and armed guards. Designed to protect activities so sensitive that the government decided the safest solution was to make entire cities invisible to the world. These places were built for one purpose: to isolate people working on nuclear weapons, biological research, missile systems, and classified military technology, ensuring that secrets would never leak beyond their walls. During the Soviet era, these cities were known by code names rather than real ones. Labels like Arzames-16, Selyabinsk 65, and City numbers deliberately chosen to confuse foreign intelligence agencies and even Soviet citizens themselves. Residents were given fake postal addresses that pointed to other locations entirely, meaning letters sent to these cities appeared to arrive somewhere else. On paper, millions of people lived in places that officially didn't exist. On maps, there was nothing, just empty land. Life inside these cities was tightly controlled. Entry and exit required special permits. Foreigners were completely banned, and even Russian citizens needed approval to visit family members. Surveillance was constant. Conversations were monitored. Photography was often illegal. Residents were trained from a young age to never discuss their work, never reveal their location, and never ask questions. Secrecy wasn't a rule, it was a way of life. One of the most disturbing examples is Ozyorsk, once known only as City. It was built around the Mayak nuclear facility, a major center for producing plutonium for Soviet nuclear weapons. In 1957, a massive radioactive explosion occurred at Mayak, one of the worst nuclear disasters in history, contaminating vast areas and exposing thousands of residents to lethal radiation. But the disaster was hidden. People were not informed. Villages were quietly evacuated years later. Medical records were falsified. For decades, the world knew nothing, and the city remained sealed, as if silence itself could contain radiation. What makes these secret cities even more intense is that, paradoxically, many residents lived better than ordinary Soviet citizens. They had higher salaries, better housing, reliable food supplies, and improved healthcare benefits offered in exchange for absolute loyalty and silence. It was a psychological contract. Comfort in return for confinement. People grew up knowing their world was safer inside the walls, yet terrifyingly fragile if the truth ever escaped. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, many believed these cities would disappear. Instead, several were simply renamed and continued operating under new secrecy laws. Even today, Russia officially recognizes a category called closed administrative territorial formations, meaning the concept of secret cities never truly ended. Some are still involved in nuclear research. Others focus on advanced weapons development. A few are rumored to handle projects so classified that even their names are restricted. Modern satellites can sometimes detect these cities' rows of identical buildings, guarded perimeters, strange road networks, but images alone reveal nothing about what happens inside. Information remains controlled. Employees still sign lifetime non-disclosure agreements. In some cases, residents cannot leave permanently without government approval. Freedom exists, but only within boundaries. The most unsettling part is the human cost. Entire generations have lived and died inside cities the world never acknowledged. Children grew up behind fences without knowing why. Families accepted risks they were never fully informed about. And disasters, when they occurred, were buried under classification stamps rather than headlines. Russia is one of the very few countries on Earth where entire cities can be erased from public existence while continuing to shape global military power from the shadows. These are not abandoned ruins or forgotten towns. They are living, breathing communities hidden, not by accident, but by design. And as long as secrecy remains more valuable than transparency, some cities in Russia will continue to exist in total darkness, influencing the fate of nations while officially pretending they were never there at all. Fact number 3, Russia has cold so extreme that it can kill a human in minutes. In the heart of Siberia exists a place that feels less like Earth and more like another planet. A village called Oymyakon. officially recognized as the coldest permanently inhabited location on Earth, where winter temperatures regularly fall below -50 degrees Celsius and have been recorded as low as 67.7 grados bajo cero, a level of cold so brutal that it can kill a human being within minutes if proper precautions are not taken. This is not seasonal cold, not a temporary storm. This is a constant, life-defining force that shapes every breath, every movement, and every decision made by the people who live there. In Oymacon, cold is not an inconvenience. It is a predator. Exposed skin can freeze in less than a minute. Metal becomes so brittle that it can snap like glass. Cars are never turned off because engines will instantly die if allowed to cool. If a vehicle stops working while traveling between settlements, the driver may not survive long enough for help to arrive. The cold does not give second chances. Breathing itself becomes painful. At extreme temperatures, inhaling deeply can damage lung tissue, and moisture in the air can freeze inside the nose and throat. Eyelashes freeze together. Eyelids can stick shut. People learn to breathe slowly, carefully, as if the air itself might attack them. Even tears can freeze before they fall. Daily life in such conditions feels almost unreal. Children still attend school unless temperatures drop below a certain threshold. For most of the world, would already be considered fatal. Groceries freeze solid during the walk home. Food left outside becomes rock hard in minutes. Meat is stored outdoors like natural frozen storage, because the environment is colder than any freezer humans could build. Death here is different too. The ground is frozen solid year-round, making burial nearly impossible. 2D grabs. People must light fires to soften the earth, a process that can take days. This alone shows how deeply the cold controls human existence. Even death must negotiate with the weather. What makes this fact more intense is that thousands of people actually live here permanently. Families raise children, elders survive decades. Life continues not because the cold is manageable, but because humans have been forced to adapt. Clothing is made from thick animal fur. Diets are heavy in fat and protein to generate body heat. Movements are slow and deliberate, because rushing increases sweat, and sweat can kill when it freezes. The cold of Siberia has shaped history in terrifying ways. During World War II, German soldiers advancing into Russian territory were unprepared for winter temperatures they had never experienced before. Weapons jammed. Vehicles froze. Soldiers suffered frostbite, amputations, and death not from combat, but from exposure. Russia didn't just fight with soldiers, it fought with winter itself. Even today, modern technology struggles against Siberian cold. Batteries lose power almost instantly. Screens stop functioning, fuel thickens. Machinery fails. Nature constantly reminds humans that it remains in control, no matter how advanced civilization becomes. Psychologically, living in such cold changes people. Isolation increases. Depression becomes common. Sunlight disappears for long periods. Silence dominates the landscape. In winter, the land looks dead white, frozen, and the environment feels hostile, as if it never wanted humans there in the first place. And yet, people remain. This is what makes Russia as cold so disturbing. Humans survive where logic says they should not. The cold doesn't just threaten life, it constantly tests it. Every journey is a calculation. Every mistake is punished, and survival is never guaranteed. So, when you hear about cold weather, remember this. There are places in Russia where the cold is not just a condition, it is a silent executioner, waiting patiently for one moment of carelessness. Fact number 4, Russia built a doomsday system designed to destroy the world deep beneath Russian territory. Hidden far from cities and ordinary military bases, exists one of the most terrifying ideas ever created by human intelligence, a system designed to end the world automatically, even if no humans are left alive to press a button. This system is known as Dead Hand, and later referred to as Perimeter. It was born during the Cold War, an era when fear, paranoia, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation shaped global politics. and its purpose was chillingly simple. Ensure that if Russia is destroyed, the rest of the world dies with it. The logic behind Dead Hand is brutally cold. Russian leaders feared a scenario where an enemy might launch a surprise nuclear attack so devastating that it would kill the entire leadership, presidents, generals, commanders before. They could order retaliation. In that situation, Russia would be erased from existence without striking back. Dead Hand was created to prevent exactly that. It removed human decision-making from the final moment and handed it over to machines. The system works by constantly monitoring the environment. It tracks seismic vibrations, radiation levels, air pressure changes, and communication signals across the country. If Dead Hand detects signs consistent with a massive nuclear attack, explosions, radiation spikes, and complete loss of contact with command centers, it begins a terrifying process. If no human cancels it within a limited time window, the system assumes Russia has been destroyed, and then it acts. Special command missiles are launched, not to hit enemy cities directly, but to fly over Russian territory and transmit launch orders to all remaining nuclear silos, submarines, and mobile missile units. These orders cannot be ignored. Once received, Russia's nuclear arsenal launches automatically, sending intercontinental ballistic missiles across the planet. Siberian's civilization collapses. Humanity enters extinctional-level chaos, not because of a decision made in anger, but because a machine followed its instructions perfectly. What makes this fact truly disturbing is that Russian officials have confirmed the system exists. While exact details remain classified, former officers have openly discussed its role as a last resort deterrent. Even after the Cold War ended, Russia admitted that automated retaliation systems were modernized, not dismantled. The world moved on, but Dead Hand did not disappear. This means global survival may depend not only on diplomacy and rational leaders, but on sensors, algorithms, and warning systems that must never fail. A false alarm, a misinterpreted signal, a technical malfunction. Any of these could, in theory, trigger irreversible destruction. History shows how close humanity has already come. During the Cold War, early warning systems on multiple occasions falsely detected incoming nuclear missiles due to sunlight reflections, software errors, or radar malfunctions. In some cases, individual officers chose to disobey protocols, preventing nuclear war. Dead Hand removes that human hesitation. It was designed precisely so that hesitation would never happen again. Supporters argue that this system prevents war by making nuclear attacks pointless. If destruction is guaranteed no matter what, no enemy would dare strike first. Critics argue the opposite, that automated annihilation removes humanity's final safeguard: human judgment. Once machines are trusted with extinction of evil decisions, the margin for error becomes terrifyingly small. The psychological impact of Dead Hand is enormous. It represents a mindset where survival is no longer the goal, revenge is. It accepts the end of one nation as inevitable and focuses instead on ensuring everyone else shares that fate. It is deterrence taken to its absolute extreme. Even today, no one outside Russia knows the full capabilities of the system. How automated is it? How much human oversight remains? Has artificial intelligence been integrated? These questions remain unanswered, locked behind secrecy. What is known is enough to be chilling. The existence of Dead Hand means that somewhere beneath the ground, machines may be silently waiting for signs of humanity's final mistake. No emotions, no fear, no mercy. Just protocols. And that is what makes this fact so intense. The end of the world may not begin with anger, hatred, or war, but with silence, sensors, and a system that was never meant to be turned off. Russia Fact 5. Russia has a lake so radioactive, standing near it can kill you. Hidden deep within Russia lies Lake Karachi, a place so deadly that it turns one of nature's most peaceful features akin to a silent weapon of mass destruction. For years, this lake was considered the most radioactive body of water on Earth, and at its peak, standing near it for just 5 to 10 minutes could expose a human to a lethal dose of radiation. No warning signs, no visible danger, no dramatic explosions, just invisible particles slowly shutting down the human body from the inside. Lake Karachi became deadly during the Cold War, when the Soviet Union was racing to build nuclear weapons as fast as possible. Near the lake stood the Myok nuclear facility, one of the USSR's most secret and important plutonium production sites. In their desperation and urgency, Soviet authorities made a catastrophic decision. Instead of safely storing nuclear waste, they began dumping highly radioactive material directly into Lake Karachi. At the time, secrecy mattered more than safety. For years, the lake absorbed enormous amounts of radioactive waste. The radiation levels became so extreme that birds flying over the lake reportedly died mid-air. Water near the shore emitted radiation strong enough to damage DNA instantly. Yet the public knew nothing. The lake did not appear in newspapers. The surrounding region was sealed. Information was classified. Silence became policy. The horror escalated in the 1960s, when a severe drought caused parts of Lake Karachi to dry up. As the water level dropped, radioactive sediment was exposed. Then the wind began to blow. Toxic dust, filled with radioactive particles, was carried across hundreds of kilometers, contaminating villages, farmland, and entire communities. Thousands of people were unknowingly exposed. Cancer rates spiked. Birth defects increased. Livestock died. Still, the government said nothing. Residents were not warned. Evacuations were delayed or never happened. Medical records were altered. Doctors were instructed not to mention radiation as a cause of illness. People continued living, working, and raising children in an environment that was slowly poisoning them. Many only learned the truth decades later, if they survived long enough to learn it at all. What makes Lake Karachi even more disturbing is that it doesn't look dangerous. There are no glowing waters, no smoke, no obvious signs of death. To the untrained eye, it looks like an ordinary lake, quiet, still, almost calm. That illusion is what makes it lethal. Radiation doesn't announce itself. It works silently, damaging cells, breaking DNA, destroying organs long before symptoms appear. In the 1990s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the truth about Lake Karachi finally began to emerge. International scientists confirmed radiation levels so high that the lake was effectively a death zone. The Russian government responded not by cleaning it up, but by trying to contain it. Concrete blocks were poured into the lake to prevent sediment from becoming airborne again. The lake was partially buried, not healed. The danger was locked in place, not removed. Even today, the area remains heavily restricted. Radiation levels are lower than their peak, but the lake is still dangerous. The soil, water, and surrounding environment remain contaminated. Generations of damage cannot be undone. Lake Karachi stands as a permanent scar left by human ambition and secrecy. This fact is especially terrifying because it proves something deeply unsettling. Human technology can permanently destroy natural environments, turning them into long-term death traps that outlive governments, wars, and ideologies. The radiation in Lake Karachi will remain dangerous for centuries, possibly longer. Russia is not the only country with nuclear contamination, but Lake Karachi represents one of the most extreme examples of what happens when power, secrecy, and speed override responsibility. It is a reminder that some disasters do not explode into history. They seep into it quietly, poisoning lives one by one. So when you imagine a lake, you think of life, calm, reflection. But in Russia, there exists a lake where water itself became a weapon, where silence replaced warning, and where death waits patiently without sound, without movement, and without mercy.